Hey everyone, thanks for your patience. We just had a slight technical difficulty. We'll just wait another minute before we get started. Just okay, here we go. We have a couple people. I can hear Camelia talking on the phone, just getting them on with the link so people will pop in. But let's start with introductions in the meantime. So thank you everyone for being here today. We have a great seminar lined up for you. And I'm gonna just quickly turn it over to David from Cultivate Advisors to kick us off. David.
Hey everyone. So I'm David. I'm the touch point for Cultivate Advisors in the Tri-Cities area. As an advisory firm, what we try to do is partner with businesses to help them scale and grow and drive towards their vision of a company. So that can be in many guises, but we really come to join up and try to drive the vision of the owner in the business. Today we're going to be diving into the financial side of things. So one of our advisors, Sean Eckerman, is going to lead the charge here, just walking you through cash flow analysis with the COVID situation on hand. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Sean. Thanks for coming today, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the warm welcome, and thank you so much for the Tri-Cities for hosting us here at Cultivate. So as Dave said, I work as a business advisor, and that really what that means is I sit alongside business owners and entrepreneurs, almost like sitting beside them in a car shotgun, helping them navigate the business growth and also helping them navigate obstacles. And wow, are we ever in a spot right now where we have a lot of obstacles all of a sudden? So what I'd love to do today, and really the concept today is to get an understanding of, okay, this is where we are now. We're in a COVID world. How do I navigate as a business owner the next 3 months? So what I wanted to do today is provide you guys with, I guess the purpose of today is provide you with a concept, structure, or a framework for thinking through how to manage your finances and really cover home base. And then once that's done, how do I lean into the future in a way that's going to make my business stronger for when this does start to open up and the dust starts to clear. So that's really what I wanted to cover today. And hopefully the outcome that you guys will walk away with is a framework or a structure around cash modeling, which I'm going to walk through, as well as some ideas around some of the levers you have access to improve cash position, and then some ideas around how to structure your thinking around marketing and the commercial side, some of the communications that you're going to have to navigate and manage. You might already be navigating and managing them, and I'm sure most of you are, internally with your team and your clients, as well as externally with the market. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here. I've got a bit of a presentation. All right. Present. Cool. So agenda one more time, covering the home base, which is really taking that financial first focus. What are those levers you have access to? The communication internally and then external communication about moving forward. How do you position your business? So what I'd like to first talk about is covering home base. And I think that there's, obviously with a lot of businesses right now are in a position where they don't really have a clear picture of cash flow. And it's because they've been relying for a long time on financial, P&L reports or income statements or sort of backwards looking financials from their bookkeeper. And there has been very little work done on forward looking cash projections. And what I'd like to do is share with you some of the best practices that I work with my clients on as far as getting a picture for the future. And right now, it's not just enough to have a future focused cash flow model. We also need to look at what the best case is. What is the best case scenario for what where we are right now from a cash flow perspective for our business? What is the most probable case? And then what is the worst case? And model all those three out. Once you have access to those models, you can make some of these big decisions. And sometimes some of these decisions you've had to make without a perfect picture. And that's obviously a little scary and unsettling. You never have a perfect picture, but it's about understanding, okay, well, what costs do I cut? If I can understand those three scenarios, best case, most probable, and worst case scenarios, I can understand, okay, well, what do I really need to do to cut costs, excuse me. Then how do I manage my members and my clients through this time? How do I communicate to them? How do I manage my employees? How do I, does it make sense to do the layoff process? Or does it make sense to keep a few folks on? Who do we keep on? How does that work? And then what options do I have for additional cash? And I know the Tri-Cities has provided a tremendous amount of resources and support around getting access to that. Things are changing all the time. There's a tremendous amount of access out there and options out there to get that additional cash. So we won't touch on that, but today really it's about kind of managing the tactical pieces of things. So I want to take a step and talk about modeling. And by the way, as I go through this, if you have any questions or concerns or points that you'd like to bring up or discuss, I'm going to be taking all the questions at the end. So if you hit the chat, please just write down your questions and I'll circle back to them as I wrap up. So what I'd like to showcase here, guys, is a cash flow model that I use with my clients. And this cash flow model is a weekly cash flow model, and it allows you to look at week to week what your cash beginning is and what your cash ending is. And for a lot of you, this might be a little bit too detailed, but for a lot of folks that I work with, cash flow modeling on a week to week basis is incredibly important for navigating, the ups and downs and the rocks over the next 12 or 13 weeks. So what I've done here is I've mapped out effectively 13 weeks here. It starts in the past. This model's a little older. Obviously, you would forecast 13 or 12 weeks into the future. And what I have here in the purple, just to walk you through this, is sort of the cash beginning and cash ending. And it's all tied into this model. And by the way, I will be sharing this model with you guys. And I'm absolutely happy to walk you through this on a one-on-one after this if you guys need. But what it does is it shows forecasting into the future what your clients will be actually spending with you, what the cash that comes in the door. And this is not accrual. This is not like when we're doing the services and when the invoices are out. This is actually cash coming through the door. It's really important that this is a cash model and not necessarily a accrual model in the sense that you're tracking when you're doing the work or when the invoices are out. This is when the money is coming in the door and then also when the expenses are leaving. So I have, let's say, 10 clients and each of these clients are paying me various different, monthly payments or different project payments. This model might not work for all businesses. It works definitely for businesses that are in, trades or any sort of project work, whether you're a professional services firm, and happy to work on any other models. But the concept is the same, looking at the income and mapping that out as best as you can. Then you can also add in, where you think that you possibly could onboard new clients. These new clients are it's sort of the sales pipeline piece. It's the very sort of bottom of your funnel. It's the folks that, hey, these are the people that most likely are going to close in the next 12 weeks. Well, we can put them here. They're not factored into the income. They're just there for your reference. And I like to see that because I know that, okay, well, if keep them a part of the financial forecast because they very well could be it could be the case that money does come in. So it's important to keep track of that. Down here you have your total cash in, which is the effectively sum of all of these different, very similar to this. But I have this is, when am I paying these bills? When is the money going out? And I also have a loan calculator down here as well. This factors into, right at the top of the model, I have a debt line where I could see, okay, well, if I take a line of credit draw, or if I take a loan, how much is that and where does that hit the bank? You can see here I've got a $10,000 coming in on April 13th this week.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Why are you so bald, bro? What the fuck?
What's that?
Why are you
I think
so
we got
bald,
a bomber
bro?
there.
Oh, I got.
Oh, I think we need to boot that person.
All right, they're out. They're gone. Sorry about that.
No worries. That's good.
They're also not supposed to be able to unmute themselves.
You know what?
So,
I'm actually excited about my very first Zoom bomb. So that's great. I've heard about them, so I'm stoked. So I've got the debt coming in here, which factors into the cash. You can see the week before my cash ending was 3,900, and now it's 13 grand. So it's factoring in there, and then you can walk through. Okay, well, if that's the loan balance. Well, what does the interest payments look like based on, let's say it's a 20% interest rate? What does that look like into the future? And then I have also loan payments that I could put in here that would also reduce the cash. But all in all, ultimately, it's pretty simple. It's cash in, it's cash out on a week-to-week basis. And I have my cash out line here and my net cash flow factoring back into my cash line at the top. The reason why this is powerful is because you can then duplicate this and call it a probable case scenario, where you might have actually some of your clients not pay at all, or pay into a sort of payment plan, or you can structure late payments just by dragging the fields into the future a few weeks. Obviously, everybody is managing accounts payable and accounts receivable as best they can. This is a way for you to forecast, what does that do if I push that out? Well, how much of an impact is that going to have? How much of an impact is that going to have on my cash line? So the concept here is to use this to create an accurate picture for the future on a week-to-week basis. You can also do this monthly for sure. But this is a managerial set of books that helps you answer operational questions. What should I do with these expenses? Should I lay someone off? How much money am I going to have in my bank account in 12 weeks if everything goes, to plan? It's challenging to get that information from QuickBooks because it's past looking. It's static, right? So this is extremely important. And if you don't have one of these models, please let us know. We're happy to walk you through and build it for you completely pro bono. It's really, really important. And it just takes the anxiety right down once you have visibility on these numbers. So once you have this, you can duplicate it to probable case and then the worst case scenario and map out, ideally on the revenue side, what does that look like and what is sort of your absolute floor? You want to make sure that you have effectively a floor here. My floor is 0. You can put conditional formatting in here that shows you that if it goes below 0, it doesn't just show a negative number. It also shows you as a red cell. But I wouldn't recommend your cash flow floor be 0. It should be a multiple of your fixed expenses. Ideally, be at least 3 months of your fixed expense burn rate, so that you maintain that cushion. This model is not doing that. It's just meant to show you the formulas and how that's structured. So if you have questions about that, more than happy to walk you through that. But I wanted to cover that in the modeling side. So moving on from the modeling side, I want to talk about levers. What do you have access to, right? Now that you have visibility into your weekly cash flow or your monthly cash flow for the foreseeable near future, what do you have access to, right? So I'd like to, typically what I'd like to think about is putting expenses into 2 columns. The first is your revenue generating expenses. And then the second is your non-revenue generating expenses. Your non-revenue generating expenses right now, you can reduce. And this, I'm sure many folks have already started to do this process, but again, it's really important to take another cut at it, because you could take at least 20 to 30% off of those expenses, whether that's just cutting those expenses or renegotiating. And from an accounts receivable perspective, it is important that you collect this, obviously this cash, as soon as you can. Things have tightened up already. Over the last 3 weeks, they've tightened up considerably. If you have an issue collecting accounts receivable from folks, some strategies around that are offering 1 to 5% off the invoices in order to collect that money sooner than later, or offering payment plans if nothing else. But really this is about, and you'll ask any good accounts receivable clerk, it is about following up and following up and following up, having that conversation about what can we do in a partner way, but really following up with folks. Then moving on from that, accounts payable, obviously you want to try and put yourself in the best position possible from an accounts payable perspective, who you owe. This is your partners, your vendors. If you haven't done this, phone every partner, phone every vendor you have, and have a conversation about what can you do to meet each other halfway if you can't pay. Or if you feel like it would put you in a position from a cash flow forecast perspective, that is a dangerous position. It puts you into near or breaks your threshold. So have this negotiation. I find this really works well with a long-term partnership lens, where you're thinking through, okay, well, what does this mean for us to be partners for a long time? Let's work out maybe a payment plan structure where I can pay later, maybe pay some interest later on. So this is really, really important. And then obviously from a payroll perspective, several of you, I'm sure, have gone through the painful process of doing the temporary layoffs or the layoff process, or actually gone through and gotten that wage subsidy. I know the Tri-Cities has provided a ton of resources around this. Ultimately, this comes down to a mindset piece. I think for a lot of my clients, you develop incredible relationships with your team. Your team could be really helpful through this time, and you don't want to lay people off. I know that across the board, but ultimately, you really need to think about this from an essential crew perspective. The number one kind of fiduciary responsibility you have is to the business health, because if the business doesn't succeed, everybody loses. And there's this concept of being a peacetime versus wartime CEO. Andreessen Horowitz is a famous VC firm in Silicon Valley. Ben Horowitz wrote this Peacetime versus Wartime interesting article. I would recommend you guys read that just from a mindset perspective, thinking through, okay, there's time when there's peacetime, where you can think about goals and you build people up, develop, create, that wonderful rosy future. And then there's time when you're in a battle and you're in a war and you need a different style of leadership. You actually need to change hats. Not that you change your completely change your personality as a leader, but you need to be able to be flexible and change hats into a wartime CEO, which makes tough decisions when necessary and breaks protocol in order to win. So I would recommend you read that. There is something to be said for what does a wartime CEO mean for me. Some people do that easier than others. I struggle with making some tough decisions when my back is against the wall, because I got into business back in the day to help and support people as well as to build value. And sometimes it feels like you're not doing that. But I got to say that the most important thing you can do is protect yourself and your business. And that is doing whatever you can to access these levers. And then, of course, access to cash. If you're not if you're not already all over these, please look and have a conversation with your bank. If you do not have a good roadmap for this, talk to the Tri-Cities, talk to Stephanie, talk to Dave, talk to myself. We can help you through this process. Okay, so that's the levers. So what did we talk about? We talked about the cash flow modeling, the scenarios, having a good indication of what cash flow is going to do, and then having access to all those levers, right? Those expenses, cutting those down as much as you can, following up on accounts receivable, accounts payable, renegotiating with your suppliers and your vendors as much as you can. Payroll, really trying to reduce that down to an essential crew perspective. The government is really supporting a lot of people right now. It might be a good time to scale that down. If not, obviously double down and make sure that your employees are bought into the new plan, which we will talk about now. And that is, how do you communicate to your clients and your staff? 2020 is a wild year. And, the best laid plans back in November, December, and January of this year for this, in 2019 and early 2020, they don't apply anymore. It's important that you hit the reset button on 2020 and you put the old plan on the shelf. Reread your vision statement as a team. When you rebuild your plan for 2020 and reset your goals, reread your vision statement and make sure it's still aligned. It is important that you continue to build your vision in this time, but it just might look a little different right now. And write down any assumptions around those A, B, and C scenarios, but redefine what success looks like for 2020. It's a really important piece. Then what I'd like you guys to do is schedule the next 3 months into 2-week sprints. It's not necessarily like we're going to build a plan for 2020 and that's it. And it's new. Things are changing like crazy. Timelines are shifting. The curve is flattening. It's not flattening. In other places, there's dependencies all over the marketplace globally. It's hard to predict. So it's important that we schedule and be agile from a sprint methodology. So that would be defining what's happening in the next 2 weeks with your team, designing what your approach is going to be for the next 2 weeks as far as accounts payable, accounts receivable. What are we going to do from a cash flow perspective? How are we going to position ourselves to support our clients? Building a strategy around that, testing it in those 2 weeks, and then releasing your plan, executing it, and then looking at it again. So it's if you're familiar with development cycles and agile development cycles, it's exactly the same. You can do it for your business, and it just allows you to keep nimble. Communicate your checkpoints to your team as well. Every 2 weeks, okay, guys, we're checking in. How are we doing to plan? What should we be doing this week? And everyone does this naturally, but it's good to put some bones around this so you can communicate. If you haven't done this, do this today. Call all of your clients and connect. This is important. There's so much information you can be getting from your clients around what they need from you. And there's a lot of opportunity to add value to them that's maybe tangential to what they're paying you for. It's really important to connect as a human being during this time. Obviously, everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's at home. Everyone's a little tired of hearing the COVID story, but it is important to start thinking about the future and start talking about the future with your clients, because that's where we are right now, where it's like, okay, we're in stasis mode. What are we doing about the future? Have that conversation from a human being perspective. And then be clear about your service and billing expectations with them at the same time. This is what we're going to be doing for you during this time, and this is what our expectations are for payment. Have that conversation with them and try and get ahead of that conversation with them versus have to chase them for accounts receivable. It's important that you get an idea of how the cash is going to be impacted from your clients so that you don't have to catch it on the back end and have to scramble and emergency cut expenses. And then plan something for the future with your clients. Plan something ahead, like, hey, this is what we're doing in the fall. We've got an event in the fall. I just want you to know that this is what we're going to be moving towards. We're going to be organizing towards, so that they know that you're here for the long term and you're focused on the future. So I want to then now switch to your outside audience. So this is a concept around marketing, right? How, this time right now is a really interesting time because things are slowing down across the board. But there is an awesome opportunity here to tighten up the marketing side, build your brand in a unique way. And the first thing is obviously have a COVID-19 communication strategy. That goes without saying. I think a lot of you have already maybe done this. If you haven't, You know, the hallmarks of this: be empathetic about COVID. You know, if there's two ends of the stick, one that's taking it seriously, the other that's not, obviously grab the taking it seriously end. Everyone is in the same boat and supporting each other through this time. Be abundantly cautious, and put a banner on your website that says, okay, listen, this is what we're doing about COVID, and have that updated and change. That's just general, like 101 for this time. I want everybody to take a step back on the marketing and become a history buff with your marketing. Audit everything. Audit your web traffic, audit in the past, audit things like your conversion rates, audit your spend and your efficiency. There's so much, you know, audit your customers right now. Where did you get them from? What were some of the sources that worked really well? Get an understanding of why people are buying from you and what your marketing has done to date. That's something first and foremost. If you have any time, take some time to go in and look. If you don't have a good understanding of your measurements, get clear on them. What does a marketing qualified lead mean? What does a sales qualified lead mean? What does qualified web traffic look like? What are these measurements? If you don't have clarity on your marketing measurements, or your sales, or your commercial measurements for your funnel, take this time to get clear on those. It's super important. And then finally, moving from that, once you have a clear understanding of the past performance on the marketing, what your measurements are, lean into your community and listen to what's important and how things are changing for people. This is where you start to see the opportunities for resetting the marketing plan. So what are the pain points that are going on right now? What can you do to add value to other people in your space? Who can you partner with right now to help position your brand for your clients? Spending that time to connect and listen is really important. And then if you haven't done this, which a lot of my clients don't, they have never done this, which is mapping your customer journey. If you have some time, get your team in I was going to say a room, but don't get them in a room. Get them on a Zoom call and map out your customer journey process. Okay, so all of the different touch points. Okay, where do your customers hear about you? Okay, great. Well, then they hear about you there. Where do they go next? Then where do they go? They go to your website. What do they click on? What happens to them? Their email gets sent to your CRM. Then you follow up. You phone them. What do they hear? Then what's the next ask, right? Mapping your customer journey and think about your touch points. There's so many different interesting ways to improve your touch points around gamification. You could gamify certain things around, like, you know, right now it's like there's ads going out that are gamified. There is a ton of different things that you can do to help improve the way that your brand and your values come through in each touch point. So this is a really cool exercise to do with your team. If you haven't done it, we could certainly help you facilitate this process, but very, very important piece. And then once you have done that, you've done your audit of all of the different measurements of the past. You've sort of said, okay, well, this is working, this isn't working, these are the holes in my marketing. I've done a good job of listening to my clients and understanding, okay, this is really what they need from me right now, and into the future, we're going to be continuing to listen. We've broken sort of our approach to the marketing into sprints. Now it's like, okay, well, let's reset the marketing plan for 2020, aligning with our goals, our new goals. And what I do is I think about the 5 C's of a marketing plan. And when you think about marketing strategy, everybody and their dog has a sort of an answer to what that means. But for me, it's these 5 C's. So what are your campaigns that you're going live with? And what campaigns are is like, who's your target market? What's the message to them? What are the goals for this campaign? So how do you measure that? What's the timeline of the campaign, and what's the budget? Once you understand that, so I'm going to be marketing to people that are this age to this age that are in the Lower Mainland. The message to them is, B2B companies in the marketing space. The message to them is, some sort of value prop message that's going to resonate with that market for right now. okay, well, the goal is I want to generate at least 5 new conversations in the next 2 weeks. And the timeline is I'm going to run a campaign for 2 weeks. And the budget is I'm going to do it for free. I'm going to do it all through, posting, or I'm going to do a webinar. So then you think about, okay, well, what's the content that you're going to produce? Well, maybe it's a webinar presentation. Maybe it's a piece of, maybe it's an ad. Maybe it's a video post. And then you can think through, okay, well, then what are the channels I'm pushing that through? Well, it's going to be LinkedIn. It's also going to be my email list, or it's going to be Instagram. And how consistent am I going to post that? Well, I'm going to post it on Monday, and then I'm going to repost it on Wednesday. And I'm going to ask a couple of people also to post it on Friday, every week, or whatever it might be for you. And then how are you going to capture leads through this? How are you going to capture and then move people through the funnel? So if you haven't kind of structured campaigns this way, it's a really great way to think through the bones of your marketing, and then allow your team to come in and kind of fill in the gaps and put those ideas and make them live in a way that's structured, and you can get traction moving forward. There's never been a better time to hit the reset button on the marketing side. Not to say that you're going to be advertising your butts off right now and hitting people with discount messaging, and I don't know if that's going to play well right now. But what you can be doing is doing campaigns around partnering with other give back campaigns. You could be partnering with other organizations. You could be doing a spotlight on a current customer and how they're managing COVID, so that you could, maybe the goal of the campaign is brand awareness. But campaigns all need to be kind of relatively consistently structured and then scheduled out. 2 more points. First thing is nurture your relationships. Phone 10 of your best clients and do spotlights on those clients, or get survey data from those clients, and actually then use that information, those videos or that survey data, to then use that in your marketing, your blog posts. But really nurture your relationships right now, spending time on doubling down and doing whatever you can to support your best people, your best clients. This is a great opportunity to also ask for referrals during this period of time. Hey, is there anybody that you know that you can connect me to? When you're busy, a lot of the time people think about, new clients, net new clients. We need to go advertise. We need to go get new clients. Very, very few. Actually, when you're busy, you don't really think about some of the best clients you have as being one of your greatest assets for prospecting and sales and marketing. Think about how you can use them. And then finally, become a support hub. Grow your audience. This is be a support network, right? Connect people, get information out that can help and support people right now. Become a support hub. I think that's a really, really great way. Become the most customer-centric company in your industry is really a great way to build your brand and build foundational strength in marketing right now. And then finally, have a good offer ready. Possibly when things do clear up, how are you going to hit back? How are you going to get traction right away? Think about that campaign and when that's going to be scheduled. Yeah, you can always move the campaign around from a timeline perspective, but start thinking through these campaigns. I just had a conversation with a client the other day where they're like, there's really nothing to do right now. There's a ton to do right now. Like, even if you don't execute the campaign when you want to schedule it and you have to shift it by 3 weeks, spend time building that content, thinking through that strategy. Super, super important to do. If you have the time, absolutely spend the time to do it. If you need help on the structure, let me know, let Dave know. We have happy to walk you through facilitating that process. So we have 15 minutes left, guys. What we're doing at Cultivate here is we're offering pro bono one-on-one support through this time. It's basically an hour with one of our advisors, whether it's with me or with another advisor. Dave is curating it all, so it's all going through Dave, depending on what you need and who you need to talk to. But ultimately, this is an opportunity to just walk through the cash flow stuff, walk through the marketing structures, and kind of fill in some of these questions I'm asking you with somebody that can help facilitate that. So if you'd like to, you can either hit us up in the chat with your email address. We can reach out to you to set that up. Ultimately, this is really not a sales pitch in any way. This is just an opportunity for us to get together and support. We're a huge fan of Tri-Cities, and we want to do whatever we can to support. So with that being said, I would like maybe to pause and go to questions.
All right, we didn't have any questions come up in the chat throughout, but if anybody has a question now, if you could throw it in the chat and we will address it, whether it's the cash flow, marketing, maybe something beyond those scopes that Sean and David might be able to help you out with. Melissa said, great presentation, Sean, thanks so much. Any other questions? We've got a couple minutes.
There's one question that was asked to me through a private chat, and that is the cash flow model. Will this be available? That what I just walked through? Absolutely. If you want to have access to it, just get in touch with Dave. We can set you up with it. I'd like to walk you through just at least for a first 15 minutes, like how I built it. so it's not super confusing. And then, of course, you can have access to it from there, and it can be completely yours, and do whatever you want with it. So I've actually collected somebody there. Thank you. We'll reach out to you around the cash flow stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sean. You have all the contact information there if you want to follow up with any more questions. Our first Zoom bomber, you handled it with grace.
That was like so. It was so awesome. I actually am really excited that happened to me.
Yeah, good story for the weekend.
It's good. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. The recording will be on our Facebook page, so you can check back, see anything you missed, and we will share anything with you the cash flow analysis with you as well. So thanks for all tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.